Now, for another week, the world has watched images of bodies, including those of women and children, being pulled from the rubble in Gaza. Speaking in Tel Aviv earlier, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken called for heightened protection for civilians and journalists. It has been reported in American outlets that the U.S. is concerned that Israel is losing support due to attacks against civilians. Now, according to the Gazan Health Ministry, the death toll has risen to more than 9,000, with many of those killed children. Airstrikes on the Jabalia refugee camp killed and wounded more than 1,000 this week. Yesterday, the SABC News spoke to Dr Khaled Qaddumi, who is a spokesperson for Hamas, that launched the attack on October the 7th that killed around 1,400 Israelis and took more than 200 people hostage. He says Hamas and the Palestinian people have been pushed to this sacrifice, meaning the current war, because the international community has done nothing about war crimes committed by Israel. Dr. Qaddumi says, told my colleague Iman that they are not hostages but prisoners. He says the non-Israeli hostages are guests of Hamas and are being treated well. He says that Israel has fabricated stories about Hamas using civilians as human shields, and he's denied that children are among the hostages.
For us, those 200 plus prisoners, we took them from the war zone. And that is very much rational and very much normal. I mean, I'm not able to understand what sort of just court you are talking about. They are fighters. We took them as prisoners. And of course, the prisoner of wars, the end of it should be swapped. That is something, not an invention by Hamas. This is something very rational. So what we will do, what we can say to the families of the Israeli soldiers and Israeli prisoners, that your government is refusing the swap. Your government is delaying the return of your children to you through impeding the swap process. This is a war. They were trying to kill us. On the other hand, our Palestinian fellows who are prisoners, they are our heroes. They've been kept in the Israeli jails. Some of them, they are sentenced to 360 years. Among them, there are children below 12 years old. There are ladies who are sentenced for tens of years without any end.
All right.
The only hope for them in the so-called Israeli courts is the swap. So this is what I'm saying. We are not impeding any single moment. We are ready from yesterday to release the Israeli prisoners and let them go back home the time our prisoners will go to their mothers and fathers.
Are there
and
not
their
children
families.
amongst those, the 242 that you're describing as prisoners?
No children at all.
We are now joined by the Israeli ambassador to South Africa, Eliav Belotsercovsky. Ambassador, thank you. Your response to what the spokesperson from Hamas was saying?
Well, first, I have to say that I deeply regret that such a respectable news channel as SABC has provided a stage for a representative of a terrorist organization. I think it's really very regrettable, or more than this, and I'm just asking, what next? Will you interview a representative of Al-Qaeda or maybe of ISIS to present his views? And with all due respect to yourself, I'm not going to answer or reply to these blatant stories of lies and cheap propaganda that we heard yesterday. I think the Hamas does not deserve such a stage, and Hamas has to be destroyed, and there is no place for such inhuman organization like Hamas that murders children, young women, old people, kidnaps them, and in the most cynical way lies about the hostages. It cannot happen that in a democratic country like South Africa, such a respectable news channel provides a stage for such terrorists to express their opinions.
All right, I'll leave the reply to that to SABC management. You're saying that Hamas is lying. Are you talking there about his statement that no children are among the hostages?
Again, I don't want to refer to what she said. What I want to say.
Are children among the hostages that were taken from Israel by Hamas? Of course there are children.
Everybody knows it. You don't need to ask me. You can see the British newspaper, The Sun, that published the photographs of the children. There are 35 children among the hostages. But the fact that there are children is not the only problem. It's not only children, by the way. It's also babies. The youngest hostage is 9 months old. And it's also old men and women. We have 15 men and women that are 75-year-old and older among the hostages. And the worst is that these, as they call them, guests, they don't have access now to the Red Cross. We don't know if they get medications. Nobody can see them. They are kept in the tunnels of the Hamas. This is the terrorist organization we are dealing with. And the whole world has to see it and has to understand it and has to condemn it.
He said the guests were the non-Israeli hostages, so they're not seen by Hamas as prisoners, but the people who are seen by Hamas as prisoners are the settlers. So they are saying that the settlers are armed and essentially part of the Israeli war machine. Your response to that, because that has been said publicly.
Again, I think these are lies. And really very, very strong propaganda that doesn't hold water, really. This is, one of these guests, just to give you an illustration of what I mean. One of these so-called guests, yes, was a German girl that was captured by the Hamas heroes, yes, resistant heroes, so-called, captured a young woman, brutally raped her. And then they paraded her naked on the streets of Gaza. And this is not what I say. They documented it by themselves. And unfortunately, 3 days ago, we got credible information that this girl, this guest, was not among the living anymore. She did not survive it. She was murdered. So this is the Hamas. This is the propaganda they spread. They're people that have went beyond ISIS. Their atrocities are inhuman. And I think providing them a stage is really shameful.
So with all due respect, we're providing you with the stage to answer to many claims, and one of them that has not been only reported by Hamas but other outlets is that there's violence on the West Bank. There's concern about the West Bank. And I was asking you about the settlers. The report suggests that settlers have displaced more than 800 Palestinians, and there is concern about that area. Your response to what is going on there?
Okay, so first, when we speak about Gaza, and when we speak about the people that were captured, they were captured on Israeli territory. They were not captured on any disputed territory.
Okay, so they were not settlers.
Were captured.
You're saying they're not settlers.
They were not settlers. They were members, most of them were members of the kibbutzim. Now, if you know, in our history, we have created something that is called the kibbutz. And the people that live in the kibbutz are the most pro-peace people you can find in Israel. And they were working very hard on getting the Israelis and the people of Gaza together. But to get this day, now, the kibbutzim are empty. These kibbutzim are empty because they were destroyed and the people there were brutally murdered in their houses. whole families and children and old people. So what kind of propaganda is this? What kind of nonsense are these?
And the West Bank,
I really don't understand how anyone can really, it's enough to check basic facts to see that all this absolutely has no meaning.
All right. Thank you for your response to that. The reports that settlers have displaced around 800 Palestinians in the West Bank. Can you respond to those reports?
Yes, I can tell you regarding the West Bank. Israel is a state of law. And everything is going through the judicial system. And anyone that commits any kind of violence, or he goes beyond the law, is going to be punished. And it doesn't matter if it's a Jew, if it's an Arab, if it's a Palestinian, if it's a settler. There is absolutely no refugee for any kind of violence against innocent people. These people, if the investigation will find them guilty, they will be punished.
I know you don't want to respond to the spokesperson from Hamas. Can I ask you to indulge me one more time, because it was said publicly and statements like these have been made before. Can you respond to what he said, that more than 2,000 prisoners in Israel include children younger than 12, so that would be Palestinian children being kept in Israeli prisons. Is that correct?
That's not correct. And again, I don't want to refer to what he said or didn't say, because it absolutely has no meaning. It's just ridiculous. But I want to say one thing. Israel has a court system. Every person in prison, Palestinian or Jewish, is presented to the court. And if he's convicted and he's being sent to prison for the crimes he committed, he has all full conditions prescribed by international humanitarian law. He gets everything that he deserves, including visits by international organizations. So you cannot really compare. There are no two sides here. There is a side of a democratic country with independent judicial system, and there is a side of the Hamas. Hamas that doesn't care about human lives, that is ready to spare human lives, even of the Gazan citizens, in order to achieve its main task, which is destruction of Israel. That's what the Hamas is looking for. They don't want peace. They don't want everybody in their eyes has to leave or to be killed. That's their treatment of Israel.
Ambassador, the immediate concern is for the more than 200 hostages that are still in Gaza, condition unknown for many of them. The demand is for the more than 2,000 prisoners, I understand, in Israel to be released, and there are international negotiators involved. Will Israel consider swapping all Palestinian prisoners for all Israeli prisoners, hostages, whatever you want to call them?
First, we are talking about hostages. We are talking about innocent people. We are talking about people that have not committed any crime. And again, including children and small babies. We are talking about older people. And to correct you, we don't have any information regarding any of them. Not some of them. And these are hostages. Let's call the things the way they are. They're not prisoners. For them to be prisoners, they had to be brought to court. They had to be convicted in crimes and then sent to prison. But they're not prisoners. They're hostages. And we are not going to give up to this highway robbers technique of taking people and then trying to get somebody in exchange. And to remind you, the Palestinian terrorists that are currently in prisons in Israel They were convicted for terrorist activities. And terrorist activities include murder of innocent civilians, of innocent people, because this is Hamas, this is their tactic. They kill civilians. And we cannot release them because they have been convicted. And definitely, we are not going to succumb to these demands of freeing innocent people for convicted terrorists.
Ambassador, moving away from Hamas, we heard the U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, speaking earlier, and some very important U.S. media outlets are saying that the U.S. president and his advisors are warning Israel that it will become difficult to pursue your goals because the global outcry is intensifying because of the human suffering happening in Gaza. Can you confirm, is even one of your top allies, or your top ally, the United States, concerned about what is happening in Gaza?
I can tell you, we are also very concerned about what is happening in Gaza. We don't need anybody else to tell us. We are very concerned about the loss of human lives in Gaza. Our war is not with the people of Gaza. Our war is with the Hamas. And our aim is to destroy the Hamas terrorist capabilities. And I can tell you there is a very simple solution to the suffering of the people of Gaza. And this is if the Hamas stops firing missiles. And until today, from the 7th of October, Hamas fired 10,000, close to 10,000 missiles on towns, villages, cities of Israel, indiscriminately, trying to terrorize civilian population. So first, they need to stop. They need to stop these missile attacks. Second, they need to release unconditionally the hostages. And third, they need to punish the perpetrators of this brutal, murderous attack that took place on the 7th of October. If they fulfill these conditions, we will stop the attack on Gaza, and the innocent people are not going to suffer.
Okay, but you're
as
saying,
of now,
Ambassador, you're saying the solution lies with Hamas. Innocent civilians presumably can't control what Hamas does, but they are the ones suffering. The world is seeing images of children being killed. Aid organizations are saying that operations are being done without anesthetics. The water supply is still not back. Do you not expect support for your cause, even those who were supporting you, to wane, given all that we are seeing?
Well, I want to say, first, we are dealing with facts. We are not dealing with propaganda. And the facts are as follows. The water supply has been resumed. Okay, it has been resumed a long time ago. It's nice to say the water supply has not been resumed, but it's there. Gaza receives water from Israel. And by the way, just another fact. Israel provides 10% of the consumption of water of Gaza. And this water has been resumed. Okay. Every day, there are hundreds of humanitarian trucks that enter Gaza with supplies, with medications, etc. So to say that there is no supply and no water is not true. And I want to ask you, we are letting the humanitarian supplies reach, we are providing with water. Do we know what the hostages, the Israeli hostages that are held in the tunnels in Gaza are receiving? Do we know if they get medication?
Are aid workers
get any supplies?
Are aid workers lying when they're saying they're running out of supplies and they're doing operations on children without basic anesthetics and painkillers?
I want to say, you know very well that the Hamas is ruling Gaza. When I say it's ruling Gaza, it's also ruling the Ministry of Health of Gaza. And to remind you, a week ago, there was an incident in which the missile of the Hamas hit a hospital in Gaza. And straight away, without any examination, the Ministry of Health of Gaza issued a statement. It's Israeli missile and 500 people were killed. They threw the number in seconds. And of course, everybody picked it up. And what happened then? Suddenly the whole world discovered, oh, it was not Israel that hit the hospital. It was the Hamas. So what about these figures of Palestinian Health Ministry? Can we trust them?
Ambassador, I was talking about international aid workers who have spoken about the conditions there. But even if we talk about hospitals, the bigger concern this past week was a refugee camp. Hamas says it's a lie that fighters are using civilians as human shields. My question to you is, even if they are, does that justify 1,000 people killed or wounded in a place of refuge?
It does not justify even one person killed. It doesn't justify even one person killed. But again, if the Hamas
Jabalia camp,
Jabalia.
Yes, they say more than 1,000 people killed, either killed or wounded.
Look, I don't know where these numbers come from, okay? But again, I say, if the Hamas is very keen on stopping this war, on stopping the suffering of the Gazan people, they can do it. And I can tell you one more thing. To an interview in one of the Arab stations, television stations, one of the leaders of the Hamas, Musa Abu Marzouk, he clearly said, look, we, the Hamas, we are staying in the tunnels. The people above the tunnels, the civil population, it's not our care. 75%, according to him, are refugees, and the UN should take care of them. So I ask you, if they are so keen about their people, why don't they get them into the tunnels? Why don't they protect them? Why do they keep them up? This is, because we are dealing with the Hamas, and we are taking them as if they are kind of a credible source of information and kind of a charitable organization. The Hamas are terrorists. They don't care about their people. They on the contrary, they cherish the martyrdom.
Yeah,
there was an interview a few years ago of a Palestinian woman that came with her baby to a hospital in Israel because it was not possible to treat the baby in Gaza. So she brought him to Israel to be treated. And she was asked, how's the treatment, so on, so on. She said, we're very happy, we're very good treatment, and so on, and I'm coming back to Gaza soon. And then the journalist asked him, and what do you want your son to be? And you know what was her answer? Well, of course, I want my son to be a shaheed. Now, a shaheed is a martyr. And that's how the Hamas is educating the children in Gaza to become martyrs, because they sacrifice the death. And the children are educated on hatred. And as long as Hamas is there, and as long as the Hamas with iron fists rules Gaza, and there is no other law in Gaza, that's only the Hamas law. There is no democracy. There are no civil rights. There is no independent judicial system, nothing. There is only the Hamas.
Can we end here then, and a quick response? It sounds like then there is no hope for the people of Gaza, because you are saying that Hamas has to lay down its arms and then you'll stop the bombing of Gaza. But from the way you've described Hamas, that you've made responsible for civilians in Gaza, that's never going to happen, right?
From our point of view, we need the Hamas to dismantle its terrorist capabilities. We need the Hamas to declare that it's going to be a political force that is going to strive to live peacefully aside Israel. I think your viewers have to understand, Israel is not occupying Gaza. There is not a single Israeli that stays in Gaza. Israel is out of Gaza since 2005. We left the whole of Gaza. So Israel is not to blame for occupation. There is no occupation. And Israel cannot blockade Gaza because Gaza has also a border with Egypt. So we cannot control the border of Gaza with Egypt. So there is no reason for this hatred. There is no reason for these brutal, terrible, massive attacks on Israeli population.
All right.
And I think that in the future, we need to have a government in Gaza that will realize that the only way is to live side by side in peace with Israel. We don't want any inch of Gazan territory. It's not ours, and we don't have any interest in it. Gazan people can live the way they want. The only condition is for them to leave us in peace.
All right. Thank you. Israeli Ambassador to South Africa, Eliav Belotsercovsky, in reply to the earlier interview with a spokesperson for Hamas.